Well, after that, there was a kind of necessary hiatus, really, because I had to get on with grieving. And I was kind of in a form of inertia that meant I wasn't writing anything. And that went on for about the best part of 2 years. And then I came up with Jesus to a Child, and I was so excited that I'd finally been able to put my feelings for him into words. And, you know, the kind of catharsis of that record for me was massive. And within a week of writing it, I was singing it in front of the Brandenburg Gate with an orchestra behind me and paying my first kind of public tribute to him there.
I can only imagine what the Sony executives were thinking sitting in the audience at Berlin. I don't believe there's a soul in the audience could have sat there and gone, it's over. I mean, it was obvious that he was back on form.
I think from then on, I was recovering and I started recording older, and it was a long process, probably because I was so stoned.
Jesus to a Child went to #1, and we went out for a big celebration lunch, Andy, Dick, the whole team, you know. And he put a little Walkman across the table and said, have a listen to this. And he played You Have Been Loved, and I just could not believe what the man had done with that.
The album didn't come out for a good year later, but with Fast Love coming from that, it just exploded the older album for us.
And the kind of optimism that I showed on Older, I took my first experience of bereavement and tried to take all the best, most positive lessons from it, you know. It was absolutely the album I had to make at the time. That was where I was, you know. Definitely by the second half of making that record, I was definitely a happy man again.
The way we actually met was this really famous spa. It's not gay or anything.
And our relationship was kind of, you know, chat, plucking up the courage to ask him to go out for dinner with me.
I wasn't sure it was him. I didn't grow up in a musical family.
No, I don't believe that for a second. I believed him at the time, but I know him now.
He actually asked me out. He said, we should go out for a meal. I'm like, yeah.
Because I wasn't sure he was gay. And I wasn't sure he was gay on the first dinner date.
But I think he thought maybe I was picking up this straight guy, which he wasn't.
The second night, I became very sure he was gay. From that point on, you know, from the third day that he was around me, I just felt like my life was about to change drastically again.
Everyone knew. We'd go out to restaurants, hold hands, and all sorts of stuff. I think it was just, you know, he hadn't went on a television show and said, I'm a gay man.
The first half of the 90s was pretty crap for me, and 1996 has kind of made it all worthwhile. Thank you very much.
I remember the Unplugged really, really vividly. I just lost myself in singing that night, and I'm so glad my mum was there. And I'm so glad, you know, for the first time ever, and definitely the only time ever on film, I actually said hello to my mum in the audience. Hello, Mum. And it was the last time she ever saw me play. So, you know, I have great affection for that evening because I knew she was so proud of me, you know.
His mother especially was a huge blow after Anselmo. I mean, like a double whammy. So, you know, George spent a lot of time in grieving people that he really, really loved.
I think it was, I remember we'd met like a week. I think he was speaking to his mother, telling her that he'd met me. And she told him that she'd found like a lump or something. But you know how you she kind of downplayed it?
She had a little spot, like a dark spot on her shoulder. And, you know, you don't look at these things.
In a way, you know, if you're glass half empty, you could say, oh my God, you didn't get any time off. You know, the minute you were in love again, something disastrous happened. But the way I look at it is that I feel as though Anselmo sent me Kenny at the exact time that I would need him.
Because he was so close to his mother. You know, really, really tough call. And that kind of stopped his songwriting, all those things. It was, that became not important at the time.
Yog's always been a man that bottles it up as well, you know. And it was just devastating, Mel.
My mother had a melanoma of apparently the most, melanoma, which means a skin cancer, apparently of the most virulent form. And I think in reality, she knew she had far smaller chance of survival than she was letting on to us.
There was this one period when I couldn't say anything to him. I just didn't know what to say.
Unfortunately, you know, it went into remission, I guess, for 3 or 4 months, and then came back with a vengeance, and within a week of that, she was gone.
Now, unfortunately, George cannot be here tonight, but I have a message from him, and I've got to read it out, and it says, "To everybody here and everybody watching at home, I would like to apologize for not attending tonight's awards show."
I remember just being somewhere on some other planet for weeks. I don't really remember the days afterwards. I don't really remember who tried to comfort me, you know. I was in shock. No, I wasn't prepared, in short. I was not prepared.
Everybody knows how long it took him to, not quite got over her yet, but to get over her. And, you know, it's very tough for all of us.
My mum never, ever patronised me and always believed in what I was doing and believed in my right to kind of do what I was doing. And I miss that so much. I miss that incredibly. Let me think. I suppose, you know, they left me alone for a while because I was nowhere. I was stuck at home, you know, in my, you know, black hole. I was nowhere to be seen. So they kind of left me alone for a while. And then, of course, the next thing was... This is the notorious park. It's very pretty.
Let's go outside.
Beverly Hills police officers arrested the singer, known as George Michaels.
And you know the really weird thing? That day I remember so clearly being in the car, and it was really windy, and there were these two guys that I think were also part of the kind of entrapment setup that were going in and out of that bathroom. And something in me said, you shouldn't go in there. There's something really dodgy going on. But I went. Do you know what I mean? What were you thinking? That's what everyone wants to know. What were you thinking? Would there ever have been a day when I sat and talked to someone and said, yes, Mr. Such and Such from the Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday maybe, you know, I am gay. Would I ever been able to do that? That would probably have been harder than all the flack I took.
To come out of the closet and be busted in the toilet is not the best way of coming out of the closet, really. But he coped with it really well.
It's nice to make people laugh once in a while, isn't it?
I did laugh. I mean, it's not very dignified being caught in a toilet with the trousers down, is it? By a policeman, and it's certainly something I would never happen to me.
You know what? I've really heard George, his kind of side of it, and you know, I really felt for him in a way. And we're all human.
I also knew that having made such a fool of myself, I'd really better come up with a hit song.
You know, I wouldn't be all sort of self-righteous about it. You know, go and make a video about it.
I think he handled it in exactly the right way.
I don't know if he really realized that Americans would not support a video about a chorus line of American police officers in the toilet.
Helicopters flying over the house, and you just think, oh my God, how embarrassing.
I think I'm done with it so far.
I just thought, you silly fool, how could you have got caught?
Looking back on that period, the media did such interesting things. First, there was this absolute dependence on the past in terms of what was going to happen to me inside as an individual. The headlines were just all about shamed this and shamed that, and you know, the tortured artist and the this and the that. The homophobia was just flying. They were loving it. To be able to say that this man who had hidden from them for the best part of you know, 6 years by then or 7 years. The idea that he had been this tragic, old-fashioned, you know, stereotypical cottager, they just loved it.
I knew he'd fly through that. I knew him so well, you know. And he handled that like George Michael.
I'm not presuming that cruising in itself is dysfunctional, because I don't think it is as a gay man. But cruising as George Michael, there's something vaguely dysfunctional about that. There was obviously a general feeling that people thought, poor sod, and who cares anyway, right? Then, of course, I spoilt all their fun because I made the record and I made the video, then kind of cleaned it all up, cleaned up any mess that was left with the Parkinson interview, you know?
I never even think about masturbation before calling my lawyer.
There's no question. I told the truth and showed more of my own personality than I'd ever had the courage to show before, and, you know, sold 2 million records. And I suppose from that moment until the release of Patience, the press felt that they had not had their pound of flesh.
You know, I heard that when people said, well, he did the cover record to cover up a period in his writing or whatever.
From my fans' point of view, I'm thinking, God help them, they're going to have to wait again, you know, because I just can't come up with anything.
I mean, I think when you work with anybody who has any kind of tragic news, the loss of his mother, all of the parts of what you do to come through it in the studio are what writers do.
I honestly wanted to stay afloat personally by having something to do, which meant learning, progress, you know, working with Phil Ramone, singing songs that would stretch my voice. I was offered the opportunity in the year before to take those standards and do a big New Year's Eve show, which would have sold the album through the roof, no question. But for someone in my position, I just felt, no, I'm just going to look like an old crooner who kind of is... It would have given me... I'm sorry, it would have kind of... I would have felt like Rod Stewart, like, well, I'm not really... You know, I'll do a bit of this now.
So, this is the concert version.
They had to go along with it at the time. Everybody's laughing. And basically, oh, good old George, and now you're out, and isn't it wonderful? You know, blah, 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 blah. We're so accepting. But privately, these people who make it their life's work to upset people who they feel are too privileged, were like, fuck, what is going to stick to this kid?